The Astros crown themselves as the best in the West once again for now the 7th straight full season, 7th time over the last 8 seasons, if you want to count 2020. But I'm not going to count that because, let's be honest, who is? But, at the end of the day, the Astros did lose the series against the Mariners, but honestly, it doesn't really matter at this point. We could go 0-4 for the rest of the season over our last 3 games, and I wouldn't care one bit. But we're going to talk about this series, and personally, we're going to talk about the season as a whole to this point because, at this point, these last few games don't matter. But like I said, we're going to talk all about it coming up next. Stay tuned. It is 8:38 p.m. Central Time as of when I'm recording this video, and the Astros are still division champs in the AL West. Like I said, this is now their 7th straight full season division title. But yeah, let's talk about this rather not so good series against the Mariners. I could care less about how it went because, all that matters is that we clinched the division. But we're going to talk about it nonetheless. First things first, let's dive into a couple of injury updates on Chas McCormick and also Yordan Alvarez, who had missed this entire series while he was battling his knee contusion. Both of them are rehabbing nicely. However, they will not be traveling with the team to Cleveland for the final series, which it's kind of a smart thing to do because, like I said earlier, these last few games do not matter because, unfortunately, Cleveland has clinched the first round bye into the division series, and whoever wins the AL East at this point will likely get the other one. Therefore, the Astros will be locked in as the number 3 seed in the American League, so that means they will be playing host to a best-of-3 wildcard series, and the opponent on that is still to be determined, seeing it that as the AL wildcard race is still pretty heating up, because as things stand right now, the top wildcard team will be whoever is the runner-up in the AL East, and which right now is currently Baltimore. However, they have been chipping away at the Yankees' deficit. The champagne, I think, for the Yankees is staying on ice for the time being. I think all they need is one win to clinch the division, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like I said, kind of going back to the Astros here, like I said, neither Chas McCormick nor Yordan Alvarez will be traveling with the team to Cleveland for the final series. So, therefore, they're not going to play. Personally, like I said, that's okay because their goal is to just get them rested up as much as they can before the playoffs. And seeing that we don't have much to play for, that means that we can continue to rest some of our guys and give them extensive time off. And that will also allow us to set up our rotation for the playoffs, whereas our opponent will not have that luxury because, for the time being, they're still in more of a win-now situation. Take a look at the Kansas City Royals, for instance. They've really been kind of struggling over the past week or two. And so, obviously, these last few games for them that they're playing are very important to them. So, therefore, they can't afford to give a lot of their guys much time off. Same also applies for the Tigers, who currently have the second wild card spot, or at least as of when I'm recording this video. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Kansas City and Detroit are actually tied for the second wildcard spot, and Minnesota currently has the last one. And then the Mariners, although they are still in the mix, although they are still currently in the mix for that final wildcard spot, are still 2 games out of a playoff spot. Like I said, we'll see how the playoff picture shapes up. But the Astros will be playing whoever the final wildcard team ends up being, aka the 6th seed in the AL. And again, that would be the 3rd and final wildcard team that will be coming to Houston for the best-of-3 wildcard series. The winner of that series will face the 2 seed in the American League, which as things stand right now, again, it will be the Cleveland Guardians. So we'll see. Again, we'll see how the rest of the playoff picture shapes up. But virtually, the 2 of the top 3 seeds have been decided there. The Guardians have clinched their division already, as have the Astros. And then the only other team that has actually secured a playoff spot to this point are the Baltimore Orioles. But obviously, as we take a look at some teams in the wild card race here, we have the Minnesota Twins, who are on the outside, currently looking in for the time being, and then also the Seattle Mariners, who are also 2.5 games out of that 3rd wild card spot. Obviously, still got a pretty decent ways to go. We're going to see how the picture shapes up for this weekend. But diving into the series itself, starting here in this first game, I decided that I would spend my 25th birthday going out to the ballpark to hopefully watch the Astros clinch the division. But ever since 2019, the Astros have failed to actually win on my birthday and give me a nice birthday present, and that was the case once again. As Bryce Miller had single-handedly had his way with us over the course of the evening. The lone run for the Astros that they had hit was a Jason Hayward home run. But by the time that he had actually hit that, I was already walking along Crawford Street, having already left the stadium. And I mean, and let's be honest, that he had already hit that too little too late. The Astros certainly did have a couple of chances, mainly in the inning before that, with 2 runners on and only 1 out. But Victor Caratini and Jeremy Pena both struck out to extinguish that threat. Hunter Brown had once again pitched very well in this game, but it just wasn't enough for the Astros to capitalize and clinch the division early. But diving here into the second game of this series, this game was the game in which the Astros had clinched the division. The long ball got things done for the Astros tonight, as they ended up hitting 3 home runs in total, the first of which came in the first inning with Alex Bregman homering off of Luis Gilbert to make it 1-0 Astros early on, though that lead unfortunately would be short-lived, as George Polanco for the Mariners had hit a towering home run onto the train tracks off of Framber Valdez, and it's 1-1. And then going into the third inning here, the Mariners had their way with Framber Valdez in this inning. The first 3 men in this inning ended up reaching, with Julio Rodriguez and Cal Raleigh hitting singles, and Randy Arozarena batted home one of those runs with a double. And then after a Justin Turner groundout, it seemed that it would be likely to, hopefully, that Framber Valdez would get out of this inning. But unfortunately, George Polanco, who had homered off of him earlier, would bat home another one of those runs to make it 3-1. But Mitch Garver would eventually ground into a double play to end that rally for the Mariners. Then going into the bottom of the 4th inning was when the Astros would score again with a long ball from Kyle Tucker that was hooking down the line, but eventually stayed fair and would bring the Astros within 1. Then going here into the 5th inning was when the Astros would take the lead for good on a Jason Hayward go-ahead 2-run blast that hit off of the facade in the upper deck out in right field. But before that, however, he had actually made a jumping catch in left field up against the out-of-town scoreboard. He had hit his left shoulder up against it, and it had fallen down briefly, but after a quick once-over, he would stay in the game. And then it was pretty much uneventful from there. The Astros bullpen would lock it down from there on out. But going here into the top of the 6th inning, which was Framber Valdez's final inning, he would allow the first 2 guys to reach, with Justin Turner getting a base hit to lead off the inning. And then George Polanco, who again had gotten 2 base hits in this game, he had actually gotten quite a few hits in this game. This was his 3rd hit in this inning, as he laid down a bunt down the third baseline. Framber Valdez had jumped off the mound in a hurry to field it, and he did make a good play, and initially he was ruled safe, but after review, George Polanco had clearly legged out that infield bunt, and so the call was overturned. And then after retiring Mitch Garver and J.P. Crawford, that would be Framber Valdez's final batter, and then Brian Abreu would come in relief of him, after Luke Raley came off the bench as a pinch hitter for Seattle. It would take Brian Abreu just 1 pitch to get out of that threat, and then he needed, I think, just like 7 or 8 more pitches in the top of the 7th inning to retire the side. He ended up getting 4 outs in this game, so he looked great. But going here into the top of the 8th inning, Ryan Presley would then come into the game to get the next 3 outs, and it certainly did not come easy for him, as 2 of the first 3 guys reached base, but he would retire the next 2 to end that threat. And then last but not least, the 9th inning, where Josh Hader, who the Astros had signed it to a 5-year deal. This is exactly why the Astros had signed him to begin with, because we want him saving games just like this. And Josh Hader would retire the side without much drama, securing the division title for the Astros, their 7th straight full season title over the last 7 years, not including 2020, of course. It's kind of crazy to look back and see that the Astros were 10 games out of first place on June the 19th, and finally getting into first place on August 20th, and even getting a share of it just after the All-Star break. It's kind of crazy because, the Astros, of course, were actually the first team in the divisional era since 1961, I think, to actually even overcome such a deficit in that short of a time. And they're also one of the first teams since the Miracle Boston Braves, I think that's what it's called. I don't remember what year it was. But it was all the way back in the early 1900s of that Boston Braves team that had gotten off to such an atrocious start, being 12 games under 500, and I think they were probably more than that under 500. But there's been no other team during that stretch that has been able to overcome that deficit to make the postseason. And the Astros are the very first team over that stretch to get them. Like I said, the Astros are inevitable. It's just crazy because, again, even when they were 10 games out of first place, a lot of fans, including myself, had envisioned that the Astros were likely going to be sellers. But Dana Brown, being in baseball for the past 3.5 decades, he knows what a bad team looks like. And obviously, of course, he's seen it plenty of times in his career as a general manager, even this year, of course. And obviously with Hunter Brown, Hunter Brown had a 9.8 ERA just in the month of April alone, But, I mean, over time, but since then, he has just turned into a practical ace. I mean, he and Framber Valdez are probably one of our best, like, 1-2 punch that we could possibly have. And that's assuming, of course, that Verlander gets left off the postseason roster. And Verlander will make his final start of the regular season this weekend in Cleveland. I'll predict what my future is going to be like on him in that next video. And then also, I think in my next video, I'll probably also project what the Astros postseason roster is going to look like. But again, I'm not going to talk about that right now. But again, it's been a roller coaster of emotions for the Astros this season. I mean, for a team that also, again, was riddled with injuries to its starting rotation. Christian Javier and Jose Urquidy both getting Tommy John surgery. And Lance McCullers and Luis Garcia, who were both out for all of last season and will still be out for this season as well, still rehabbing from their injuries. And also Justin Verlander, who had started the season on the injured list with a shoulder issue and then hit the injured list again later in the summer with neck issues, and he had missed about 2 months or so. And obviously, he's still failing to find his form. His best start since coming off the injured list was a couple weeks ago in Anaheim, and he hasn't looked any good since. So, I mean, hopefully he can try to find something here. I mean, we'll see. I mean, again, we'll see what happens. But even looking at some other individual pitchers here, Caleb Ward, he had like a 10.8 ERA or something like that in the minor leagues when he was with Baltimore. But look at where he is now. He has like a sub-3 or sub-2 ERA out of the bullpen for the Astros. He's one of our best relievers out there, besides maybe Taylor Scott. And then also Spencer Irrigetti. I mean, this guy was an emergency call-up for the Astros, like down in their minor league system. He was our top pitching prospect. And, I mean, he didn't really look that good at first, but he is just on fire right now, and everybody knows him now. I mean, could he be one of a few guys to get called up, like, you know, as an emergency call-up and make a postseason start? But, and I mean, Hunter Brown, of course, has had plenty of appearances out of the bullpen in the postseason with the Astros, but never has he even started a game. I mean, that could very well change this year. Like I said, this season for the Astros has been a crazy range of emotions, and I mean, it doesn't even begin to describe it. So, and again, I did not think in a million years that we'd be making the playoffs, especially with how the division was going to be shaping up. Postseason baseball is back in Texas. Here we go. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked it, give me a big thumbs up. Want to watch any of my other videos? Click these cards here above my shoulders. Leave a like if you guys enjoyed, like I said, and I'll see you guys in the next video.